October had slipped into November, and the vibrant colors of autumn began to fade into the cold gray of early winter. The farm felt quieter, wrapped in a stillness that was both peaceful and a little lonely. The days grew shorter, the nights longer, and the wind carried a sharper chill. Emily had settled into the rhythm of farm life. She and Jake had grown closer, their shared work creating a fragile bridge over years of silence and missed chances. Every morning, Jake arrived with his quiet smile and the old toolbox in his truck bed, ready to tackle whatever needed fixing. On this particular morning, the sky was a heavy gray, and the wind whispered warnings through the bare branches. Emily had just finished feeding the chickens when Jake pulled up in his truck, his face serious. "Storm's coming," he said simply. Emily nodded, feeling a flutter of unease. She had never faced a winter storm on a farm before, let alone alone. Jake unloaded tarps, ropes, and tools, moving quickly but with calm determination. "We need to secure the barn and cover the hay," he said, already tying down loose boards. With practiced hands, Emily tried to help, but her fingers were clumsy with cold and nerves. The wind whipped around them, tugging at her jacket and carrying the scent of rain as the first drops began to fall. Turning quickly to a steady rain, the storm arrived faster than they expected. Cold, fierce, and relentless. They worked side by side, shouting over the roar of the wind, the barn creaking and groaning under the assault. At one point, Emily slipped in the mud while trying to secure a tarp. She laughed despite herself, soaked and cold, before she could even catch herself. Jake's strong hands grabbed hers, steadying her. Their eyes met wild with rain and relief. For a moment, a storm outside faded away, leaving only the warmth of their shared breath and the steady beat of hearts. Emily realized she hadn't wanted to fall not just in the mud, but into his arms. "Careful," Jake said, voice low but full of concern. "I'm fine," she whispered, but her voice trembled. They finished the work as the storm raged on, moving closer with every passing minute to people fighting against the cold and the silence between them. When the rain finally eased to a drizzle, they stood inside the barn's shelter, dripping wet and shivering. Jake reached for his jacket and draped it around Emily's shoulders. She shivered. "But not from the cold. I'm not good at this," she admitted quietly. "Doing what?" Jake asked. This life, the farm." "You?" Jake's gaze softened. "You're not alone anymore." Emily looked down, struggling to meet his eyes. "I'm scared," she said. "Scared I'll mess it up. Scared I don't deserve this." Jake stepped closer, his hands gentle on her arms. "Everyone's scared," he said. "But sometimes the things worth having are the hardest to hold on to." She nodded, tears pricking her eyes. Jake's voice dropped to a whisper. "Emily, I never stopped liking you." Her breath caught in her throat. "I thought you'd moved on," she said, voice breaking. Jake shook his head. "I healed, but I never forgot." They stood there, the storm outside now just a distant memory, the barn sheltering them like a cocoon. Emily felt her heart ache with longing and hope. Slowly, almost hesitantly, Jake reached out and brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. Their faces drew closer, the space between them charged with unspoken words and desires. But just as their lips were about to meet, a sudden noise startled them, a loud crack of thunder. A reminder of the world outside. Jake pulled back, tension flickering in his eyes. "Don't want to rush you," he said softly. Emily nodded, grateful for his patience. "I want this," she whispered. "But I need time." Jake smiled, a slow, understanding smile that made her heart swell. "We'll take all the time you need." That night, as Emily lay in bed listening to the rain tapping on the window, she felt the storm inside her begin to calm. She knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. There were fears to face, past wounds to heal, but for the first time in a long while she wasn't alone. Jake was there, and somehow that made all the difference. Winter was knocking on the door of the Vermont countryside. The first snowflakes had fallen quietly, dusting the fields and trees in soft white. The farm looked peaceful beneath the early frost, the barn standing proudly. The fence finally repaired, and strong. Emily Carson sat by the window of the farmhouse, watching the snow swirl in lazy circles through the cold air. The kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon and apple. Her first attempt at baking a pie had been clumsy but comforting. The house, once a place of memories, was slowly becoming a home again, but something weighed heavily on her heart. Jake Turner had been a constant presence these past few months. They had worked together, laughed together, shared moments filled with silent understanding. His hands had helped fix the fences and build new dreams. Yet there was still a distance, a hesitation neither dared to cross. Emily knew the truth. She had avoided. Jake was holding back, and so was she. The farm was thriving. The barn doors shut tight against the cold. The fence stretched strong and steady. But Emily felt something was still broken. One chilly evening, she decided to take a chance. She prepared a simple dinner: roasted chicken, fresh vegetables from the garden, and the apple pie cooling on the counter. The table was set for two, candles flickering softly. When Jake arrived, toolbox in hand as usual, she smiled nervously. "Did something break?" he teased, raising an eyebrow. Emily laughed lightly, setting the dishes down. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe I just needed one last fix." Jake looked at her carefully, sensing the weight beneath her words. They ate slowly, sharing stories and memories as a fire crackled in the hearth. The walls of the farmhouse held their warmth. But the real heat was in the quiet moments between them, the soft glances, the gentle touches of hands resting too long on the table. After dinner, Emily stood and walked to the window, looking out at the farm bathed in moonlight. Jake followed. Standing close behind her, she took a deep breath. "I don't want to do this alone anymore," she said softly, her voice trembling just a little. Jake's eyes met hers, steady and sure. "Then don't," he replied simply. The air between them shifted, filled with a new kind of hope and vulnerability. Emily reached out, placing her hands over Jake's large, calloused ones, the same hands that had held tools too big for her to manage, the hands that had caught her when she fell, the hands she now trusted with her heart. For the first time, she didn't have to hold on with both hands because of the weight of the tool, but because she wanted to hold on to him. They stood there, in the quiet farmhouse, surrounded by memories and dreams, the promise of something new. No words were needed, no words were needed in the gentle touch. In the shared breath, they found everything they had been searching for. Emily felt the walls inside her crumble. The fears fade. She was no longer running from the past or from love. She was standing in it right here, right now, with Jake, and that was more than enough. As winter settled fully over the farm, Emily and Jake faced the future together, not with certainty, but with courage, because some things are too big to fix alone. But when two hearts come together, even the biggest challenges become a little lighter. The end. Emily Carson pulled her car slowly down the winding country road. The trees on either side wore their autumn best, deep reds, glowing golds, and fiery oranges. It was a perfect Vermont afternoon, crisp with the promise of fall. But Emily's heart was heavy, tangled in thoughts she couldn't shake after 10 years away. She had finally come home not by choice, but by necessity. The city life she'd built in Chicago, with its noise and its endless rush, had begun to feel hollow. The skyscrapers that once promised dreams now cast cold shadows. She missed the way the wind whispered through the trees here, the smell of fresh earth, the quiet. Her grandfather's farm was just up ahead. She'd inherited it when he passed last winter, a legacy she hadn't quite asked for. The old place looked tired, worn, like an old friend who needed care. The paint on the barn was peeling, the wooden fence leaning as if it was about to collapse. But to Emily, it was home, the only home she truly remembered. She parked the car next to the dirt driveway and stepped out, the air fresh and brisk. She took a deep breath, smelling the faint scent of hay mixed with damp leaves. Her fingers trembled slightly as she ran them along the rough wood of the fence. The fence was broken in so many places that it almost felt symbolic her life, perhaps scattered and in need of mending. She sighed, feeling overwhelmed. Need some help with that? The voice was low, familiar, steady, like a steady stream. She turned slowly, heart skipping in an unexpected way. There he was, Jake Turner, the boy she hadn't seen in a decade, but who had never quite left her memories. Jake stood tall, broad-shouldered, with hands that looked like they had built things strong and worn. His dark hair curled just a little at the edges, and his eyes held the same quiet kindness she remembered from school days. They had been classmates, but never close. She'd been the girl with big dreams and city plans. He'd been the boy who kept to himself, always sketching in his notebook, working on his family's land. But in those rare moments when their eyes met in history class, there was an unspoken connection, an electric thread neither dared to pull. Jake smiled, little shy, as if unsure how to bridge the years between them. "Fence looks worse than I thought," he said, stepping closer. "You want to try fixing it?" Emily swallowed, feeling both grateful and suddenly vulnerable. She nodded. "I don't really know where to start." Jake reached into his worn toolbox and pulled out a massive wrench. It looked old but reliable, rusty in spots, the kind of tool that had seen years of hard work. He held it out to her. Emily blinked. The wrench was heavy, too heavy. She wrapped her hands around the thick metal and tried to lift it. Her fingers trembled. It's too big. I have to use both hands." Jake laughed, softly, a warm, deep sound that made her heart flutter. "Yeah, it's a big tool. But sometimes the big problems need big tools. And maybe a little help." Their hands brushed for a moment as he steadied the wrench in her grip. The contact was brief, but electric, like a spark passing through her whole body. The sun dipped, lower behind the hills, casting a golden light over the farm. They worked side by side, awkwardly at first, trying to fix the broken fence. Jake showed her how to tighten a bolt here, how to steady the post there. Every now and then, their eyes would meet, and neither would look away quickly enough for Emily. It was a strange mixture of comfort and longing. She remembered how safe she'd felt around Jake once, even if she had never said it out loud. "Why'd you come back?" Jake asked quietly, breaking the silence. Emily hesitated, then shrugged. "I guess I was tired of running. Tired of pretending I was someone else." Jake nodded knowingly. "City life can do that to you. This place, it doesn't change much, but maybe that's a good thing." She smiled softly, thinking of the restless nights in her tiny apartment, the endless noise, the loneliness despite. The crowd stopped as the last rays of sunlight kissed the horizon. Emily felt something shift inside her. The broken fence wasn't just about the farm anymore. Was about her life, about the walls she'd built to protect herself. And here was Jake, his big tools and steady hands, helping her break through those walls. When the work was done, for the day, they sat on the porch steps of the old farmhouse, watching the stars blink awake in the deepening sky. Jake pulled his sleeves up, revealing hands scarred from years of honest labor. "I never left the area," he said quietly. "Always knew I'd be here. Work in the land." Emily looked at him, feeling the quiet pull of a future she hadn't dared to imagine before. "Maybe," he said softly, "some things are too big to fix alone. And some tools you just have to hold with both hands." Jake smiled then, a slow, gentle smile full of promise and old memories. Emily felt a tear slip down her cheek, not from sadness, but from something like hope. They sat together in the silence, two people from different worlds, reunited by broken fences and the promise of something real. The early October mornings on the farm were cool and golden, with mist rising like a soft veil from the fields. Emily woke up each day to the sounds of birdsong, the occasional crow of a rooster, and the steady rhythm of life moving slowly but surely. It was a far cry from the constant rush and noise of Chicago, and for the first time in years, her heart felt a fragile kind of peace. Jake was there most days, showing up right after breakfast with his toolbox in the back of his truck and a quiet determination in his eyes. They worked side by side, repairing the fence they had started together, painting the old red barn, and clearing the garden overrun by wild weeds and vines. It was during these shared tasks that Emily started to see Jake in a new light, not just as the quiet boy she once knew, but as a man shaped by years of hard work, kindness, and steady love for the land. She noticed the way his hands moved with gentle strength, how he never rushed, how he paid attention to the small details. His quiet presence was comforting in a way she hadn't realized she'd been missing. One morning, while they were picking apples in the orchard, Emily broke the silence. "Why didn't you ever leave?" "Ah," she asked, tossing a ripe apple from one hand to the other. Jake smiled, catching the apple with ease. "Because this place needed me," he said simply. "And because I hoped you'd come back." Emily's heart stumbled at his words. She hadn't expected him to say that. She looked away, cheeks warming under the sun. The memories came flooding back. Unbidden, high school Jake sitting behind her in history class, always doodling in his notebook, rarely speaking. The shy glances he'd send when he thought no one was looking. The day he asked her to prom, nervous and hopeful. She had said no, not because she didn't care, but because she was scared. Scared of feeling too much, scared of breaking her own heart. She had told herself she needed to focus on her future, on the city, on being someone else. But now, standing here in the crisp orchard air, surrounded by falling leaves and fading light, she realized how much she'd missed him. And how much she still did. Jake reached out and brushed a stray leaf from her hair. His touch was soft, deliberate. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said quietly. Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in her chest instead. She smiled a small, sad smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Over the next few days, their conversations grew deeper. They talked about their dreams, their regrets, the things they'd left behind. Jake shared stories of growing up on the farm, of learning to fix tractors and fences, of the nights he'd wished for something more. Emily shared her fears about starting over, about feeling like a stranger in her own life. One afternoon, they found themselves painting the barn, the sun warm on their backs. Emily climbed a ladder to reach a high beam, but she lost her balance and nearly slipped. Before she could fall, Jake caught her. His arms were strong, steady, holding her close. For a moment, time stopped. Their eyes met close, searching, full of something neither had said aloud. "You always gonna fall for me?" Jake teased softly, his breath warm against her face. Emily laughed nervously, her heart pounding. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe." Jake's smile deepened, and for a second she dared to hope. That night, lying awake in her childhood bedroom, Emily replayed the moment over and over. The feel of his arms, the look in his eyes, the warmth that spread through her chest. She hadn't allowed herself to want someone like that in a long time. But with Jake, it felt different, like coming home after a long journey, but with hope. Came fear. Could she trust herself again? Could she open her heart without breaking it? The next morning, Jake was waiting outside with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. They sat on the porch steps, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Emily," Jake said, his voice steady, "I'm here, no matter what you decide." She looked at him, really looked, and saw the honesty there. "I don't want to lose you again," she admitted. Jake reached out, taking both her hands in his large, calloused hands that somehow felt like the safest place in the world. "Then don't," he said simply. Emily felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming mix of relief, hope, and something deeper she couldn't yet name. Their hands remained entwined as the morning sun climbed higher, warming the cool autumn air. In that moment, surrounded by the farm, the falling leaves, and the quiet strength of the man beside her, Emily knew that some memories never truly fade and some sparks, once lit, can start a fire that burns through even the darkest fears.